Okay, so now let's lay the ground rules here. Well, you do know that the primary election, which is what involves these people here, is March the 6th. Early voting starts February the 20th through March the 2nd. Those are important dates to remember. This is, we do have time constraints, so the candidates that we've invited in the races that are represented are those that were contested in the primary or impacted an issue that we thought was important to our area. So we're going to, and the candidates are seated in ballot order, the order that they will appear on the ballot, and the race and people order. We're going to give each candidate 5 minutes to make introductory remarks, and we have one microphone, so we'll be passing that down. So everyone will have their 5 minutes, and our timer is going to be Mr. Jewell, and he will signal you when you have, 30 seconds left? So please adhere to the time limit. He's a nice guy, but you don't want to get him mad. And then we will have questions from the audience. And audience, when you have a question, be sure and include who you want to address it to, be it one candidate or multiple candidates. And we do ask that you write them. We have index cards and paper available. We do ask that you put them in writing and then pass them out to actually we have ushers that are going to be picking up cards, I believe. Where are Mr. Bartosh and Miss Bailey will pick up the cards and bring them up to the front to be addressed.
And the cards are in the little baskets.
Yes. Okay. And for answers, you'll have 2 minutes to answer. Are there any questions?
Is there a closing time, or is our 5 minutes an intro and close?
Since we're not sure about, yes, you should make that your intro, your 5 minutes, but because we probably will go up to the end with questions.
Sure.
Okay. So, are there any questions from the audience? Okay. Well, candidates, thank you for being here. We appreciate it very much, giving us the opportunity to get to know you better. So, let me turn off the screen, and then Mr. Myers, you'll kick it off. All right, whenever you're ready, and I'll hand you the mic, and I guess just pass the thing down.
Yes, ma'am, I'll certainly do it. Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Myers, and I am running against Mike Conaway to be your congressman in Washington. A little bit about me. I am a 7th-generation Texan. I was born and raised in Abilene, and have been in Midland for the past 12 years. I am married to the love of my life, and I have 2 little boys, an heir and a spare, as I like to say. They are 4 and 6 and couldn't be here today. I have been in the oil field for 14 years, and I also have my real estate license for when times get tough. I'm sure a bunch of y'all know everybody in Midland has 2 jobs, the above $60 a barrel and the below $60 a barrel. So those 2 things keep me pretty busy, along with my 2 boys, and life is pretty good in Midland. It sure is. There's a couple of things. I feel like the people that you elect ought to be accountable to you. One of the reasons I started running was I went to a town hall with Mike Conaway, and he was asked a question about Obamacare. And it was pointed out that Congress the Republicans had the House for 4 years and the Senate for 2 years and still had not done anything with Obamacare. They had managed to exempt themselves from Obamacare. And Mike Conaway's answer to that was, well, not really, we're not exempted. It's different, but we're not exempted. And then a man in the back stood up and actually quoted the statute where Congress had exempted themselves. And Mike's response was, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. You know, it's complicated. And I think that was it for me. Okay, well, clearly this man's not going to be accountable to us, and we need something better. And that drives me nuts. When you asking your elected official something, they should have the answer, or they should tell you, I'll find one for you. They work for us. They work for the people. Let's see. You know, I don't know how many of y'all follow Mike Conaway's Facebook account. Recently, he was touting himself and patting himself on the back for being a fiscally responsible CPA.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Oh, it gets better. That's not the punchline. So, and I'm sure a bunch of you. Now, while cutting taxes is a good thing, I think we can all agree we're real happy about the tax cuts that went through recently. The budget that was just passed, which Mike voted for, also increases spending. Now, I'm not a CPA, but I'm pretty sure cutting revenue and increasing spending is not good business. I have a resolution that I'm drafting. Show of hands, veterans. Thank you very much for your service. You would probably be interested to know I have a resolution to fix the VA. I know very many veterans. My uncle and several close friends just have the worst time with the service that they provide for you. And I have a plan to get it fixed. I've already started the paperwork. You haven't even hired me, and I'm already working for you. My plan to fix the VA. We will move all members of Congress, the House and the Senators, and their key staff over to the VA. Thank you very much. I believe in my heart that a congressman and a senator who has to suffer the same bureaucratic red tape and nonsense that you, American heroes, have to put up with, we'll get that system fixed and we'll make it good. I believe that in my heart. And that's one of my key priorities. I've already started working on it. In a few days, I will be on stage with Mike Conaway in Brownwood, and I'm going to ask him about his fiscal responsibility. A lot of people don't know this. Did y'all know that Mike Conaway, that the national debt has doubled since Mike's been in office?
Yeah.
True. Went from around $10 trillion to around $20 trillion. Now, to pin that all on Mike would be irresponsible. It's not all one man's fault. But Mike's voting record will show he did nothing to stop it. Thank you, sir. And probably most importantly, one of the things I'll ask him is about Turkey. And Turkey has been persecuting Christians. They've been taking churches and taking the land. Turkey signed an international agreement saying that they would stop that, give the money back, give the churches back. And they haven't done it. Now, a resolution came up in front of the U.S. House saying, we the American people know that you agreed to this, we know you're still doing it, and we think it should stop. And Mike voted against that. And I will ask him why, along with all these other important issues. I will work hard for you in Washington, and I appreciate your vote on March 6th. Thank you very much.
Let me, to keep in the sequence, let me read the statement for refresh.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. In the order of appearance on the ballot, Rick Range would show up in the next race, and he did respond to us. He wasn't able to be here, but he did ask that this statement be read, so I'm going to read the statement as his introductory remarks. Dear fellow Texan, I'm asking you to help me save the Alamo. My name is Rick Range, and I'm running for Texas General Land Office Commissioner in the Republican primary on March the 6th. You should be aware that current Commissioner George P. Bush brought in out-of-state planners who devised a scheme for the Alamo called Reimagine the Alamo that took the focus entirely off of the 1836 battle and would have turned the site into a politically correct Disney-style theme park for the city of San Antonio. Now we have another candidate, Davy Edwards, who wants to rid the General Land Office of the Alamo and hand off ownership and control of it to an independent commission of unelected bureaucrats who will not be accountable to the voters. Neither option is acceptable. An excellent plan is already available for the Alamo. This plan was passed and funded by the Texas legislature 3 years ago. It would close off the streets and remove the traffic, get rid of the freak shows, incorporate a new battle museum to display the hundreds of artifacts, and to reconstruct the 1836 battle footprint where possible. It is a wonderful plan for the Alamo. When elected, I will immediately act to fully implement this plan. It will be one that all Texans can be proud of and will ensure that the focus of the Alamo will always remain on the world-famous 1836 battle, the heroic defenders, and their glorious fight for freedom. Due to the dire threat to the Alamo, we need to make this the biggest turnout for a Republican primary in the history of the state. Texas is an open primary state. Any registered voter, regardless of party affiliation, can vote in this Republican primary to help save the Alamo. Please pass this critical information on to every single person you know in the Lone Star State. A large majority still know absolutely nothing about this grave situation. I am the conservative in this race. I am strongly pro-life, a staunch defender of the Second Amendment, and am adamantly opposed to the removal and destruction of any of our historic monuments and statues. I am also strongly in favor of strict immigration enforcement. For more details, please go to rickrange.us. Together we can save the Alamo and ensure its real future posterity. I would be deeply honored to have your vote. Remember the Alamo. The Alamo is threatened like it has never been since 1836. Help me defeat the forces of political correctness that are trying to reimagine the Alamo into something it never was. Vote Rick Range on March the 6th. Sincerely, Rick Range.
That's a very tough act to follow. My name is Mike Toth. I'm running for the Third Court of Appeals. If I had one more O in my last name, I'd be a tooth. It is great to be back in San Angelo. It's great to be with you tonight. And let me just say, I want to thank you for what you've done as members of the Tea Party. If we think back about 10 years ago or so, when unelected, unaccountable individuals in Washington were getting ready for basically an 8-year assault on the First Amendment, on the Second Amendment, on the 10th Amendment, it was the Tea Party in our country which stood up and said, no, we are born to defend liberty, we're born to defend our Constitution, we're born to defend the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution. And 10 years later, we're still here and we're still strong. And as I look at the U.S. Constitution, what I notice is it begins with the words, we the people. I don't see we the bureaucrats. I don't see we the judges. I don't see we the lawyers. I don't see we the people in Washington, D.C. I see we the people. And that is where our constitutional experiment begins. And it depends on the people. It also depends on the people that voters put into office. And so you're going to have, obviously, an election coming up, and I'm one of the candidates on the ballot. And I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Fredericksburg Tea Party and of the Llano Tea Party, and I hope to have your support, and I hope to have your vote as well in the March 6th primary. Again, my name is Mike Toth. I'm running for the Third Court of Appeals. So much depends on our courts, and so much depends on the Third Court. You have legislative races. We have a governor's race. But so much of the votes that you cast, of the trips that you make to the ballot box, so much of it turns ultimately on judges. You elect great legislators. You elect the governor. And so much of their decisions, so many of them come before courts. We need solid, principled, courageous, proven conservatives, constitutional conservatives. We need them at every single level of our judiciary. And I am that candidate. I work for Attorney General Ken Paxton. I came to the Texas Attorney General's office with a very simple goal in mind: sue the Obama administration. And I had the opportunity to sue the Obama administration and the city of Austin on top of that. It's hard to say which one gave me more satisfaction. Working for the Attorney General of Texas to fight against executive amnesty and illegal immigration, to fight for fair elections, to fight for property rights, to fight for border security, to encourage the Attorney General and others to defend our president's travel ban. You know, we have judges who follow the president's Twitter feed instead of following the law. There have been 44 travel bans since 1980 in Republican and Democrat presidents. And somehow now the situation has changed. And I work for an Attorney General, and I've been advising an Attorney General who has stood up and who has defended the law as it is written. And that's what I intend to do if you give me the opportunity to be your justice on the Third Court of Appeals. I've also had the opportunity to serve in the United States Marine Corps. I spent 4 years in active duty as a military attorney. It's where I learned to try cases, working both sides of the courtroom. And I just began my 5th year in the Marine Corps Reserves. And the service members that I talk to understand what makes our nation exceptional is our constitutional and our legal system. It is what makes us exceptional. And I've been overseas in uniform, and I have seen individuals who are looking for the same liberty, the same opportunity. And what sets us apart as a country is our Constitution, is our system of rule of law, and it depends on you, we the people. It depends on us to elect individuals who will stand up for our laws, stand up for our Constitution. And I, again, hope to be the judge that you give the opportunity to serve on the Third Court. I have a beautiful wife and 2 small children, and this event that we're at today, I stood for the Pledge of Allegiance for the 3rd time today. I dropped my daughter off at school, and we said the Pledge of Allegiance together. And the country and the state that we live in are beacons of liberty for the world, but all of it depends on our judges. Please elect me, Mike Toth, Third Court of Appeals.
Hi y'all, I'm Donna Davidson, and I just want to say thank you. I love this part of Texas, and it's always a pleasure to come out here. Of course, a lot of people are coming out to Texas, and they're coming from out of state, they're coming from different places, and it's because of our Texas values. We're tough, we're hardworking, we're fiercely independent, and we want to raise our children in safe communities with traditional Texas values. I'm Donna Davidson, and I'm running for the Third Court of Appeals because of the strength of our Texas values. I have been fighting for Texas values for a long time, but let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Mission, Texas, the home of Ruby Red Grapefruit and Tom Landry, the only real coach the Dallas Cowboys have ever had. I am the 4th of 6 children. We lived in a very small home, and it was humble, but it was ours. My father died in a car accident when I was only 13, and my mother raised us, ages 7 through 20, and we all went to college, if not originally, eventually. I am proud to say that I worked my way through college as an undergrad and got a Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Texas in Austin, and then met the love of my life, Greg Davidson, to whom I will be married 36 years next month. We both went and got advanced degrees and worked our way through school again at the University of Texas. I got a law degree, he got a master's in government, and has a master's of divinity. He is a retired pastor in the PCA denomination. So what does all that have to do with me running for justice? Well, it's made me who I am today. It has given me the conviction and the determination to represent what I've been working for a long time ago. Does anybody remember when Ronald Reagan ran for office? If you go to my little push card, you'll see a picture of my husband at the young age, oh, I shouldn't say that. Okay, in 1980 with Ronald Reagan. Why? Because we were Tea Party before Tea Party came around. We've been fighting for pro-life, pro-liberty, and pro-constitution all of our lives. And I will proudly say that I have grown this gray hair, honestly, and worked very hard. Back in 1980s, does anybody remember the compulsory attendance laws that wouldn't let us allow our children to be homeschooled? I worked for Ted Roberts, and we got that eliminated so the parents would have the right to homeschool their children. In 1999, I was working for Lieutenant Governor Rick Perry. It was the beginning of throwing back the laws. We were able to pass a parental notification bill. That was way back in 1999, folks. So that parents could be involved in pro-life issues with their children. I am very honored to have served two governors, Governor Bush and Governor Perry, in a variety of capacities for Perry. I worked with him when he was at the Ag Department, so I know a lot about agency rules and agency rulemaking. A lot of what the third court is going to do directly affects everyone, because any litigation against state government or against a rule, against an agency, or that an agency is involved with, will end up before the Third Court of Appeals, because those agencies are based in Austin. Knowing administrative law is all I've done. I've been licensed since 1992. Yes, if you do the math, I went to law school a little later in life, but I am proud to say that my daughter, who is now 16 years old, has really learned a lot from what I've done and from what we've done. My daughter is adopted, and I am proud to say that I am called a mommy because of the miracle of adoption and because of the work that we've all done on pro-life issues and others. What I'd also like to say is that I believe in the rule of law, judicial restraint, and the strict interpretation of the Constitution. I think we need to make sure we don't change the rules in the middle of the game. What do I mean by that? Have you ever played a game with a child who thought that they could change the rules in the middle of the game just so they could win? That's what a judicial activist judge might do. I am proud to say that I would be the best candidate against the Democrat in November. And I am also proud to say that I have the endorsements of, among others, Governor Rick Perry, Railroad Commissioner Wayne Christian, Comptroller Glenn Hager, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, State Senator Brian Birdwell, who is a Pentagon survivor, and Mrs. Rick Green. Thank you.
Hello and welcome everybody, and I appreciate you allowing me to attend. My name is not Jennifer Friel. My name is Anita Betty, and I was asked if I could just read a brief summary of her experience. Jennifer Friel grew up in Tomball, Texas, where her parents still live. She began her career as a television news reporter and was inspired to attend law school while covering public corruption of the former Louisiana governor. She earned a scholarship to attend the George Washington University of Law School in Washington, D.C., where she also volunteered in the press office of First Lady Laura Bush. After graduating from law school, Friel clerked for the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and then practiced civil litigation at one of the largest law firms in Texas. She took a post as a federal prosecutor during the George W. Bush administration, which she held for more than 9 years. In order to seek a justice position, she had to resign from her federal position. She's earned a reputation as a tough prosecutor and constitutional conservative. She took on the worst of the worst in our communities, pedophiles, Ponzi schemers, and leaders of the Mexican drug cartels. She is board certified in criminal appellate law and serves as adjunct professor of your favorite school, University of Texas Law. On the Third Court of Appeals, she will seek to maintain a responsive and efficient court system and firmly and fairly apply the law to see that justice is served. She sent her apologies for not being here tonight, and she would appreciate your vote on March the 6th. And in a moment, I'm going to excuse myself because I would not be able to answer any questions directed for Mrs. Friel. She will be present at next week's pachyderm, where they're having another candidate forum. If you'd like to see her there, please plan to attend.
It's a privilege to be here today. I want to share a little bit about myself. My name is Tana Sue Pison. I was born in Fort Stockton, Texas. My mom married Harvey Swartz when I was in the 3rd grade. I grew up on a farm in Wall, Texas, and I actually lived in the house I grew up in. I graduated from Wall High School. I graduated from Angelo State University, and a few years later, I received a post-baccalaureate in elementary education. I married Royce Pison in 1986, and we have been married for 32 years. We managed ranches in Clayton, New Mexico, and in Meridian, Texas. I have dedicated my life to service of teaching school. I have managed classrooms for 26 years. During my 26 years as an educator, I have served on various committees, campus and district, dedicated to ensuring a strong school system. These positions highlighted my skills in communicating and collaborating, and the ability to make timely and thoughtful decisions. If elected, I plan to bring the same skills, my strong work ethic, my ability to work effectively with others, and my listening and communication skills to the position of County Commissioner. After our daughter's graduation from high school, we moved back to San Angelo to take care of my stepdad, Harvey. I continued to teach for 10 years in Bront and retired in 2017. We recently had the opportunity to be the co-owners of All-Tex Irrigation. Our daughter, Allison, is married to a farmer, and they have 2 children, Steele and Sway. They make us very proud parents and very proud grandparents. Allison is a graduate of Texas Tech University with a degree in civil engineering and is currently, or has been promoted to the Director of Water Utilities for the City of San Angelo. After years of service in the classroom, I now have the time and the dedication to give to Precinct 2 and to Tom Green County. I am eager to step up and bring my strong conservative West Texas values to the Commissioner's Court. We must address issues such as making the county, to make sure the county is fiscally responsible, make sure the county operates within its means without raising taxes, maintaining our county roads and bridges for safety and longevity. Communicate with state legislators concerning unfunded mandates that put pressure on our local budgets. I am Tana Sue Pison, and I need your support. Tana Sue for Precinct 2.
Hello, I'm Sammy Farmer, and I'm running for County Commissioner Precinct 2. And I want to thank you for having me here tonight and being here to listen to us tonight. I want to tell you a funny story about my journey to where I'm at with this, running for this commissioner seat. Around 25 years ago, there were a bunch of us young guys from North Angelo that decided that we needed to have a say in what was going on and get more interested, more involved in the community. And we formed a little group that met once a week, and we talked about issues, candidates, things that were coming up, and we got dubbed the Lakeview Mafia. Well, that didn't last too long. Well, from this group has come Justice of the Peace, school board members, county councilmen, mayors, business owners, constables, county judges, city judges, all came out of that group in this time period. And at that time, I thought, well, you know, I want to be a county commissioner. I'm interested in what's going on in the county, and so I made that known. And one of the elders in the group said, "Would you just come by my office when we leave here today?" And I did, and if I told you his name, you'd know who he was. And I did go to his office, and he said, "Son, sit down." So I did. He said, "You are in no way ready to be a county commissioner." He said, "You're just eager, and you're interested, and you want to do a good job, but you need to get out there and get some experience. You need to get, involve yourself in a lot of things." So that is precisely what's happened to me in the last 25 years. I am a deacon at my church. I spent 2 years on the committees studying school size as it relates to the quality of education. I also served on a committee that developed our future land use map that we currently use right now here in the city that had to do with zoning and rezoning different areas in town. I was on the zoning board of adjustment for 2 terms, 2 4-year terms. Until last week, I was on the planning commission. I've done a term and a half there, and I resigned there for this deal. Within that, while I was on the planning commission, we spent a lot of time, we dealt with subdivisions and the ETJ. That's around the city. There's a 3.5-mile circle that anything that wants to go in outside the city limits, it's called the ETJ. Developers have to come before the planning commission, and usually they're wanting concessions because they don't want to be treated like the city. Well, the city wants them to build these things at the exact same standards that they have to in the city in case they ever have to annex them. Therefore, there's a fight ensues. They want to be a little more lax because they're not in the city. And so I've had to deal with some of that, the county and the city being on the planning commission. I worked on many subdivisions that I either owned or worked for somebody else, and within that I had to learn how to do permits, surveying, roads, a lot of stuff that we'll be dealing with. I have worked with and for myself building new home construction with a couple of builders here in town. I have worked on big budgets for various companies over my employment years, and in doing so I've learned how to work within a limited budget and to scrutinize every expenditure to make sure that I was the right choice for that company. Most important, I think, is that I have learned how to champion people's rights. In the venue of property rights through my experience on boards, most people know me, that know me know this about me. This is something that takes a lot of time to develop and learn to do. I was born and raised here in San Angelo, Texas. I have a lovely wife, Gina. I have 3 children here with their spouses that were born and stayed here, and I have 10 grandchildren, and I care about what happens here. I don't want taxes going up any more than y'all do, and I'm prepared to dig my heels in and get involved and see what fat there is there that we can cut. We got some serious issues facing us right now at the county level. We're building a $50 million jail. We've got like she mentioned, state mandated things coming down to us that they want us to pay, the indigent health care issues that we need to dig into that deal. I have the experience and credentials to handle all the things that are required for a good county commissioner. In closing, I will do everything I possibly can to try to prevent added burden on the taxpayers. It will require time and due diligence to do this job for you. I'm prepared to spend 20, 40, 60 hours a week, whatever it takes, to get the job done, and I will get the job done. I run on my experience and my record of giving back to my community. I hope I can count on your vote March the 6th for County Commissioner Precinct 2, and I thank you again. And if anybody wants any yard signs, I'll have a little list over here, and you can give me your name, and I'll see that you have one. Thank you again.
You won't see your justice of the peace every day, but we are here, ready to serve you on many of the most important days of your life. In financial matters regarding your property or your business, to personal matters, even on those solemn days when a life has ended. My name is Susan Warner, and I am proud to serve as your Justice of the Peace for Precinct 1 in Tom Green County. So you may not see your Justice of the Peace every day, but when you do, You need that person to have the expertise and the knowledge to meet your needs with the efficiency, compassion, and fairness. I am asking for your vote because I believe my experience with the office has prepared me to meet your expectations at the highest level of service. In addition to the time that I have been your JP, I have also served as a Justice of the Peace Court Clerk for over 9 years. I am able to draw on that knowledge of all levels of the administration of that office every day. I am also a Master Court Clerk with over 300 hours of specialized education. I have many certificates obtained through the Texas Justice Training Center, and I will continue to educate myself on all that is required to apply the law appropriately. In addition to my experience, I believe my conservative views makes me an asset to the Republican Party as an elected official. I was raised in a small town of Grand Falls, which is southwest of Odessa. I am married to Stanley Warner. I have 3 adult children and 1 granddaughter. Stanley and I farm in eastern Tom Green County. And I love teaching my granddaughter all about the farm life and showing her that hard work is fulfilling. On the farm, I may be bottle feeding baby goats, helping move equipment, or hauling hay. I've even driven the combine. I apply that wealth of knowledge when it's time to be either sensitive or tough in the JP courts. My entire life has taught me the sort of values that hardworking conservative folks hold. And those values serve us well in all walks of life, and I bring those values to the walk of my life. I believe in supporting my community in many different ways. I deliver Meals on Wheels. I serve on the board of the Institute of Cognitive Development with the Family Shelter. I'm on the board of the Planning and Networking Committee with MHMR. I understand that to preside in the justice courts is to serve our community. This level of the justice system really is the people's court. And I'm sure you want a knowledgeable, experienced, compassionate judge to hear your case. And I enjoy serving our community. Even in the hardest parts of this job, giving all that is required to this position, I also get something in return. There is satisfaction in ensuring that people are treated fairly and equally under the law. So you may not see your justice of the peace every day, but when you see me, I pledge to keep an open mind to each individual's circumstance. I will always honor the importance that each issue is to the people involved. And I will always bring a level of compassion to the job that recognizes humanity, needs, and the rights to all the parties. I have taken the oath to uphold the duties entrusted to me by this office and to serve all of you and everyone in Tom Green County. Through my decade of experience, I am hopeful that I have earned your vote to remain your Justice of the Peace for Precinct 1. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anna Martosh, and I'm asking for your vote if you're in Precinct 230 in the March 6th Republican primary for Precinct Chair 230. A little bit about myself. I grew up at Wall. I did graduate from Angelo State University and Texas Tech. I've been married to Bill for a little over 40 years, and we have lived in San Angelo since 1980. We have 2 grown children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. I am retired from teaching Howard College. I'm active in our local Tea Party and the Republican Women's Organizations, and have been a delegate for 2 Republican state conventions and 2 Texas Federation of Republican Women conventions. And in 2016, I was honored there for contributions to our local CVRW club. I also volunteer with Concerned Veterans, and I have worked as an election clerk for a number of years. So precinct chair, what is it? It's a direct link between a political party and the voters in a local election precinct, and the precinct chair also serves as a member of the county executive committee. The Tom Green County Executive Committee meets the second Monday of every month and at the Republican headquarters, and I've attended several of those meetings. They are open to the public, so anybody can go. The precinct chair then is the main contact for the neighborhood and the Republican Party. As precinct chair, I will help promote our Republican candidates by events such as block walking and distribution of campaign materials. So again, I'm Anna Bartosh, asking for your vote if you're in precinct 230. That's the only ballot I'll be on in the March 6th Republican primary election. Precinct chair 230. Thank you.
Any questions to hand forward? I have a few here, so we can start with these. Let's see. Okay. Mr. Myers, here's one for you. Are you pro-life enough to never vote to fund Planned Parenthood, regardless of what else may not be funded, such as the military, or if there's a government, or if the government were to shut down?
The short and sweet answer to that is yes, I am. I am pro-life with zero exceptions. Earlier in my young adult life, I will admit that I was pro-life, and in my head there were a few obvious exceptions. When the life of the mother was in danger, or when in the case of severe mental or physical retardation for the child. In my head, I thought those were logical exceptions. In the last 3 years, my wife has through her constant encouragement, has brought me back closer to the Lord. And in our Bible school class, the guy who teaches our Bible school class tells a story about a girl who went to our school, who went to our church. A young family, she became pregnant, and thanks to the enormous amount of tests that they run during the first trimester, the doctor discovered cancer and gave her the option. You can have chemo, and we caught it in time that will fix it. You'll be fine. Or you can carry on with the pregnancy, but you can't have both. She marched forward with that pregnancy and brought that baby to term, and it's a healthy baby boy, and then she died of cancer. And that breaks my heart every time I tell that story. But that is pro-life.
Yes.
That changed the way I see it. I am pro-life with zero exceptions. So yes, I will stop the government, and I will bring it to a halt. I will not vote to fund Planned Parenthood or any other organization like it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's a question for the commissioners, the county commissioner candidates. Please share with us your knowledge of Agenda 21. Tennessee, would you go first, please?
I'm sorry, but I'm blank on that right now.
Well,
You can count me in the same area.
Agenda 21?
yeah,
Well, you two need to study up on that. I'll tell you that.
I may have, no, can you give me a hint of what it's about?
No,
No?
you need
Okay.
to know.
There's some things that I don't
know.
know what they're called, but it could have been Agenda 21, but anyway, okay.
Yes, it's
The answer
very,
is, I don't know, but I will find out.
you two need to, those are issues that we need to be aware of.
Okay.
Okay,
Amen.
thank you.
You're welcome.
That's what it's all about. This is an education for us and for y'all, so.
It is. Well, and there's actually more agendas now.
Never is. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Here's a question for Ms. Warner, JP candidate and incumbent. Your opponent's literature says justice for all. Can you respond to that?
Well, it's only common sense that it should be justice for all. And as I said in my notes here, that let me find it here, that I believe that people should be treated fairly and equally under the law. So that's pretty much the same as justice for all, in my opinion.
Thank you. I feel like Vanna White. All right, here's another question for the county commissioner candidates. Would you support or oppose a mosque being built in Tongaron County, and why? So Tennessee, we'll start off with you again.
Wow, y'all are coming up with really tough questions. And I really don't know what I would do, because I'd have to do a lot more research and know what's going on and truly know the facts, but am I in favor of that? No.
I'm not in favor of it either. I guess I would have to see more facts, just like her. But my first thought is, no, I'm not in favor of a mosque. But I also am a believer in everybody's rights to their own religion. I believe that. So that's tough. I mean, that was a really tough question. But I'm just telling the truth.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Myers, the question for you. Can you promise us in Texas that you will stand strong against things brought before the House that are against the Constitution and conservatism? Will you not cave to the pressure of the other House members? Will you not forget who elected you?
Okay, to recap, that was, will I?
Yes, sir.
There was three of them in there, I think. Okay, will I not vote for things that go against the Constitution and conservatism? That's absolutely true, I will not. I believe there are two guiding principles for my life, especially in my public life as a politician. I hate that word. It's the Holy Bible and the Constitution. And I guarantee you I won't vote to violate either one of them. Let's see. Will I not cave to the pressure of the other House members? No problem. I am a third generation oilfield, and I have real thick skin. I don't mind getting chewed on or picked on, and I guarantee that there's nobody in Washington that can chew on somebody like my grandfather chewed on me. So that will be no problem. And will I not forget who elected me? I guarantee not to forget who elected me. I am a working class stiff. I wear a hard hat and steel-toed boots. I am us. I am the people. I come from here, and I won't forget it. I guarantee that. And when you call and have questions, concerns, I won't tell you it's complicated. I'll find an answer for you. I certainly will. Thank you very much.
Ms. Davidson, here's a question for you. What is your definition of conservatism?
My definition of conservatism would be that you stand firm. Conservatives don't like a lot of change. We like to conserve things. We're also good stewards of that which God has given us. So being a conservative means not making things up, not doing things that are destructive, basically following, and I wholeheartedly agree, following the biblical rules that are the foundation for our government in the Constitution, and then following the constitutional laws. That's what being a conservative is. Being a liberal is somebody who wants to keep changing things and making things up. So it's basically the opposite. So that's what a conservative is, and that's what I've been all my adult life.
Excuse me. The question was directed to Ms. Davidson, but I'd like to answer that. Your definition of conservatism?
For me, the standard for conservatism is the Constitution. So I'm running to be a judge. So Texas Constitution, U.S. Constitution is what governs. And a conservative is conservative to the extent that that individual maintains true to the words in the Texas Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. And again, I feel as though I'm a person with a proven record to stay true to our constitutional values. I'm endorsed by Texas Right to Life, Texas Homeschool Coalition, Texas Values, Empowered Texans, and these are all groups that have a strong appreciation and allegiance to our constitutional democracy. So for me, conservative is a constitutional conservative, and that's what I've been, and that's what I'm running on.
This question is for everyone except the county commissioner candidates because they've been asked this. Are you aware of Agenda 21? And I'm going to start with Anna at that end.
Yes, I am aware of Agenda 21 and what 22 as well. It's the United Nations, and they are directing how we live. They don't want us in our private home because they want to control our lives. So this is United Nations. This is a UN thing. You can relate to the Alamo. That's a United Nations as well, UNESCO site. So be aware of United Nations and their intrusion into your home. Now, I understand a lot of electrical costs that go into building a home are because of the UN mandates. So it actually comes into your home.
Oh my goodness.
I will pass it down.
Well, I can be honest, I'm not that familiar with it, just going with what she's talked about. I have heard a little bit about it, and no, I don't like it. I won't support it. I don't like it at all.
As a judicial candidate, there are judicial canons where we can't speak specifically to items that might come before the court. I doubt this would ever come before the court only because it's a federal issue. But at the same time, I will reiterate that I'm a conservative. I believe in the strict construction of the law and the Constitution, and I do believe that the freedoms enumerated in the Constitution need to be upheld. And when something would come before the court that infringes on our Second Amendment rights or on any rights that are provided to us by the Constitution, that we have to be very careful and we have to be brave enough to fight it so that there is not an intrusion into our right to pro-life, pro-liberty, and pro-property. So that would be my answer.
I'll be candid with everyone. I have not followed that particular issue. I will certainly go home and study it, and I look forward to learning more about it. One of the wonderful things I think about Tea Party groups, you always bring so much knowledge, and you always educate candidates as to issues that oftentimes just haven't come before us. So I will definitely go ahead and do that. I am concerned about judges who rely on foreign law. This has come up frequently in death penalty context. What governs the death penalty under the U.S. Constitution is the 8th Amendment. That's been the case, and too often you see in these cases individuals and sometimes even the court, wondering what the situation is in other countries, wondering what the situation is now versus what it used to be, again, the role of a constitutional conservative is to take the law that applies, which is our constitutional law, and apply it fairly and impartially to the parties. That's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Well, I'm with the majority over here. I don't know anything about this particular issue, but I can tell you what my feelings are on the United Nations. If that helps out at all. The United Nations is an organization that gets most of its funding from you, from us, from the American taxpayer here in the heartland, what commonly referred to as the flyover states, which is okay with me. They are people who are generally liberal, don't live here, don't know us, and don't care. And as they're not Americans, I don't need their opinion. I don't want it. I'm not going to listen to them. And they can stay where they are and move out of that building. We'll use it for something else. So, to answer the question, I don't care what the UN says. We're Americans, we will do what we want to do, and I will fight them tooth and nail every step.
Mr. Myers, would you repeat when the meeting in Brownwood is, the time and the date and the place?
Yes, ma'am, certainly will. The meeting in Brownwood is on the 19th. It is at
19th
this month. Yes, ma'am.
It's 7 p.m.
And I believe it's 7 p.m. I don't have the address off the top of my head. It is on my website.
Adams Community Center, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that right?
Community
Adams
Center.
Community Center. They're in Brownwood.
At 7?
At 7, yes, ma'am. I believe that's correct. It is listed on my website and also on the
Sorry,
Facebook
6.
page. 6 o'clock. Like I said, it is on the Facebook page, it is on the website, and if you'd like to check there. Also, following that will be a meeting on the 20th, the following day in Horseshoe Bay, if anybody's interested in attending that one. That one is being put on by a sub-branch of the Rhino Tea Party.
And you and John Conway?
Ma'am,
Yes, Mr. Myers and Mr. Conway.
Okay.
we'll be there in Brownwood, and then both of us will be also in Horseshoe Bay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for Sandy Farmer and Susan Warner. What is your education level?
I went to Lakeview High School here, graduated from there, and I attended ASU some and have taken 40-something real estate classes in my career. I have a pretty extensive background in real estate, but did not finish college.
I graduated high school. I went to a couple of vocational schools, never went to college. A justice of the peace doesn't have to be an attorney, although sometimes I feel like we need a law degree because we have to learn it all. I go to lots of training because of my job. Even as a court clerk, we were required to go to training, but as a judge, we're mandated to go to training. And that's where my over 300 hours of specialized education came in at, is through the Texas Justice Court Training Center.
Mr. Toth and Mrs. Davidson, what is your background education in constitutional law?
At the University of Texas, I have the privilege of learning under Charles Allen Wright and Lino Graglia, both outstanding constitutional lawyers. I learned how to think like a lawyer at the University of Texas. They stress analysis, they stress thoughtfulness, and they stress making sure that you take the facts that are presented and then apply the law to them. And fortunately, I learned very well under both. Charles Allen Wright is no longer alive, but Lino Graglia is, and that's where I learned constitutional law at that level. And so far as applying constitutional law in the governor's office, there were a lot of times that we had to look at different issues that were involving the Texas Constitution and the United States Constitution. So I did get to apply and put that to good use.
I attended the University of Virginia for law school. While I was at University of Virginia Law School, I also earned a master's degree in history. I did that because I wanted to study constitutional history. So not only did I take courses on constitutional law as a subject matter, but I also studied extensively the history of the Constitution, which is so important if you are going to go ahead and apply the Constitution. When I finished active duty, I worked for 2 federal judges. I worked for a federal trial court judge, and I also worked for a federal appeals court judge in Houston, a wonderful jurist named Edith H. Jones. If you recall from the 2016 presidential debates, at one point Senator Ted Cruz said, if I'm elected president, I'm going to put judges like Edith Jones on the U.S. Supreme Court. And she would have been a wonderful justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. She apparently got down to the final 2 between her and David Souter. And President George H.W. Bush went with David Souter. It was my personal gain because I had the chance to work for Judge Jones as she remained as a federal appeals court judge. She's a strong jurist. And I learned from Judge Jones how in individual cases to apply the Constitution, to apply federal law. At the Texas Attorney General's office, I've learned about the Constitution by defending your constitutional rights against overreaching Environmental Protection Agency, against overreaching Department of Labor, against overreaching Federal Department of Health and Human Services, you name it, and I think we've sued it as far as the federal government is concerned. And our Constitution, again, is really the hinge upon which our liberties depend. And I had the opportunity, working for the Attorney General, to really make arguments and advance what we understand to be the original meaning of our Constitution, which is a Constitution that protects your rights, and it protects your rights against unaccounted, unelected bureaucrats. And I'm proud to have had that opportunity to serve on your behalf, and I hope to continue to serve you as a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. We probably, I don't know that we're going to have time for any more questions, so hopefully y'all have ended up what you wanted to get asked, so we'll get through this stack here. Mr. Myers, how do you plan on getting Congress to vote itself under the VA for health care? How do you propose to achieve that?
I'm going to publicly shame them into it. I will stand up in front of Fox and CNN and every other news broadcaster that I can get to stand there long enough to listen to me. And I will tell the American people that your congressman won't vote with me. Send me somebody that will. It doesn't matter. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a fiscally conservative issue. This is an American issue. Everybody knows a veteran. Everybody loves a veteran. This is about America, and this is about doing what's right. We made a promise to you folks, and you deserve the very best of what we promised you. And I will stand up in front of everybody that will listen to me, every camera that I can get, and I will tell them that that's exactly what we need to do. And I wholeheartedly believe, hook, line, and sinker, that we will get this done.
Good. Okay, county commissioner candidates. What are your thoughts on the recent county tax increase, and what is your strategy to save taxpayer money if elected? Mayor, Sammy, you go first. Take turns.
Well, neither one of us is privy to a lot of stuff that goes on down there. I've been going to the meetings online, or watching them online, and going to the meetings for 2 years. So I'm not privy to all the details. Repeat it one more time.
Yes. What are your thoughts on the recent county tax increase, and what is your strategy to save taxpayer money?
Don't have a strategy till I'm able to get there and dig into what's going on there. I'm all for saving the taxpayers' money, and I feel like that I have the expertise that working with budgets that I can see fat, and I'm not excited about any kind of tax increase. That's something that none of us want to see, but we all know that bills have got to be paid. And so when they've done a pretty diligent job down there, I feel like, in scrutinizing and going over the budget and cutting all the fat they can, but there's got to be a little more. We just can't stand any more increases. You know, fortunately, we've got some things going for us right now. The new jail is coming in a little bit under budget. That's a good thing. Sales tax revenues are up this year. That's a good thing. So that helps the other side of the coin.
I need to hear the question.
Okay, no problem. What are your thoughts on the recent county tax increase, and what is your strategy to save taxpayer money?
Well, the tax increase, it's my understanding, came about when we had a lot of capital cases. And taking those to trial take a tremendous amount of money. And those are things we're not in control of. Now, I wish we could be more proactive and not have the capital cases, which burden our county tremendously. To cut the budget, I feel like Sammy does. I need to get in there. I need to be a part of and figure out everything that's going on. But I am a taxpayer, and I have no desire to pay higher taxes myself.
Thank you. Okay. Sammy, question for you. Do you think your long-term friendship with Judge Floyd will influence your decisions if elected as commissioner? Oh, here.
No, I don't think so, because we've butted heads many times. And he's divorced me over this deal. He won't even talk to me because he's afraid that something will be misconstrued, the good old boy deal. So he said, I'll see you after the election. And we exchanged pleasantries, and y'all, the ones of y'all that's been to the courthouse and seen me, that's exactly what happens. And we've been to several functions lately together, and you've been there too. And he won't even sit at my table. I mean, we've been good friends a long time, and we've done some business together, but we butted heads too. And he's a smart man. I respect him. And the question one more time was?
Will your long-term friendship with Judge Floyd influence your decisions?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, he knows me and I know him, and we do think opposite on some things, but usually are able to sit down and come up with an amicable solution to the problem. But no, I don't think that influences me at all.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, concerning the VA, what about the choice card?
Okay, the choice card. Is anybody familiar with that program
Oh,
inside the
yeah.
VA?
Oh,
Okay. Then you know it's a card. It's more like an insurance card that's given to veterans with hardships that can't make the trip, say from San Angelo to Big Spring or Odessa to Big Spring. I will, when we go to fixing the VA, I will get the choice card, a program like the choice card, and get it to every single veteran. It is my plan to make sure that every veteran can go to the doctor that they want to go to and get the service that they need without the red tape, without the BS. You know, my uncle, I mentioned my uncle earlier, and I'll tell you a little bit about this. This is another one of my fiery issues. My uncle spent 6 months living in his RV, waiting for a life-saving heart surgery because the paperwork wouldn't go through. That's ridiculous. That was last year. Right now, he's at a hospital in Abilene. He had a real bad cough, and the VA told him he had the flu. Turns out he's got pneumonia and lung cancer. I'm not sure how you confuse the two, but that's exactly the kind of service that our vets are getting, that our American heroes are getting. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, it's criminal. And we'll fix this system and we'll make it better for you because you deserve it. You too, Mike. Thank you.
County Commissioners and Justice candidates, how familiar are you with Sharia law and how it relates to the U.S. Constitution?
I've studied, obviously, U.S. constitutional law a lot. I have not spent as much time studying other legal systems and other traditions just because, again, what we do in our courts is we apply the law that's applicable. And so what's been necessary for me to get to where I am right now is to understand our Constitution, to understand our Constitution's history, to understand the meaning of our Constitution, and to be able to apply it fairly in the cases that come before me. Vis-a-vis the application or the use of foreign law, the Texas Supreme Court, Don and I are running for an intermediate court of appeals. So, what we do is we apply, obviously, the law. We also apply the precedents and the rules from the Texas Supreme Court. So, at the end of last year, at the end of 2017, the Texas Supreme Court put out some rules as to what the intermediate courts and the trial courts should do vis-a-vis the use of the technical term is foreign law, but by that they don't mean necessarily the law of another country. They just mean the law of another venue. So it could be Oklahoma or it could be Florida, another state. So the Texas Supreme Court basically put together some rules as to what the lower courts should do vis-a-vis cases which involve private parties, and essentially the private parties are seeking to apply or the court to look at, other than Texas law. So, as someone who is seeking to be an intermediate court judge and someone who respects the Constitution, respects the structure that we have, obviously I will apply faithfully the rules that the Texas Supreme Court has set down. Both, as Donna mentioned earlier, as judges, we owe it to you to be able to sit on and to decide every case that comes before us. And if we prejudge a case, then we can't vote on that case. And ultimately, the role of a judge is to be able to serve the people and to be able to handle all the cases that come beforehand. So I'll leave my answer at that. Again, my background is in U.S. constitutional law, and I am proud to have had the opportunity to defend our Constitution, defend our constitutional rights, the First Amendment on up for you in the Texas Attorney General's office. And I hope to do the same as a justice in the Intermediate Court of Appeals.
If you mean by Sharia law the religious laws that are followed in other foreign countries, since our Constitution is not based on Sharia law, I don't know when it would be applicable. So that would definitely be my first answer. Just so that you know, back when I was in the governor's office, we had a death penalty case, and somebody tried to say that we were violating the Geneva Convention by sentencing somebody from Mexico to death under our United States laws. And we fought that. As the governor's office, we got assistance from the Attorney General's office because that is not our law. The Geneva Convention was something that we had agreed to, and it allowed for us to proceed with the execution. So as far as I know, under my understanding, our Constitution has no basis in that law. That law really probably will not come up unless there is some sort of an international something where somebody's trying to interpret that, and that would probably be in a federal court, not in our state court. I think I got the gist of that question. Was it the county?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm not familiar with that, so I'm not going to make any comment.
I personally don't believe that Sharia law should be allowed in the United States. Right now, it's not, and it's kind of a moot point, just like she said. But if you're asking my personal opinion, I don't think we need it. It's a bad deal, and it doesn't go along with our values here.
And
I have to agree with everybody here. It is way over my head as far as the justice of the peace.
Anna, would you like to comment?
That's not fair, she knows everything.
I don't know if some of you know, but Sharia law is in courts in Texas. So, you need to read up on this, and it is here. Arlington, there's some no-go zones around Houston that police will not go. So it's here, be aware.
Yes.
Well, okay. I need some feedback here. We've got like 4 more questions, but it is close to 8 o'clock, so do you want to stay a few minutes over and let me finish out these questions? Okay, let's do it. Okay, this is for the Third Court of Appeals candidates. Please give examples of cases that have come before your court.
Who either of us are on the court?
Okay. Well, I guess so that's not an applicable question. Okay.
Next.
That's understandable. Let me slow the speed up. Okay, Mr. Todd, how do you feel about having a Muslim governor in our state? Do you see this as conflicting with our way of life?
You know, again, as Donna mentioned before, as judicial candidates, you know, we basically are responsible for the issues that come before the courts. And our role as candidates is to try to educate the voters on what our methodology is, how we see legal disputes that come before us. And any comments that we make on particular issues put us in jeopardy of having to recuse ourselves. And when we recuse ourselves, we don't get to vote and decide cases for you. As I mentioned earlier, I work for 2 different federal judges, and one of whom, you know, is someone that Senator Ted Cruz admires greatly. I admire her greatly. And this was a point that she was constantly saying. There are people out there that are trying to get me recused, or trying to get me off these cases by asking questions that aren't going to pertain to my judicial philosophy. My judicial philosophy is what I'm running on, and it's what matters vis-a-vis our decisions about who we elect as judges. My judicial philosophy is one of originalism. I believe that the law doesn't change over time unless the legislators come in and change it. What the law said in 1789 is what it says now. As Justice Scalia used to say, some people want a living constitution. I prefer a dead constitution. I am an original, public meaning originalist, and that's what I'm running on. Thank you.
As Mike said, we probably can't speak to some of that question, but I will, and I probably need to clarify. If somebody runs for governor, they have to meet the constitutional requirements. If they don't meet the constitutional requirements, they can't serve as governor. If the people elect a governor, I'm not sure if the question is, would I be a judicial activist and try to remove them if I disagreed with them? That's what I think the question is, but I'm not sure.
Would you like me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. How do you feel about having a Muslim governor in our state? Do you see this as conflict in our way of life? And I do apologize, that was addressed to Mr. Toff, so that...
Right, and all I will say is that personally, I don't think I can answer that under the judicial canons. I will say that I am married to an ordained Presbyterian minister in the PCA, which is the more conservative, well, it's not the most conservative, but of the Presbyterian denominations. My personal beliefs, I think, have to be second to what the law is and what the people have elected. If the people were to elect someone and a challenge were to come up based on something, I would have to look at it fresh and anew in light of the law. But I don't think I can opine on that from my personal viewpoint. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. You'll pass that to Mr. Farmer. Okay, Mr. Farmer, in your experience, have you ever seen prejudicial regulations, fees, permits, registrations that could be eliminated, and did you try to appeal those? That is,
That is, when I was on the zoning board of adjustment, people came before us wanting, they wanted to have us consider letting them do things that was not of the norm, such as having their sidewalk too close to the street. And I read into a little period in there that that's exactly what that board was for. And it's so that you could go and you paid money to come before and say, I would like a variance here. And when in fact, you weren't supposed to have anything any closer than 10 feet from the property line on your side lot, things like that. And I got very frustrated with that and spoke my mind about it because they were saying that we were setting a precedent when we allowed these variances, when in fact, that's the very reason the people were there. I mean, they paid money to be there. And I said, I'm not going to do that deal. If you don't think that she's got the right to come here and say that, then don't take her money. Tell her going in. And that's not a prejudice issue. I think that's what you asked about, prejudice.
They said it was setting a precedent.
The people with the city, I mean, if we just continue to allow these things on and on and on, and yes, there has to be a stopping place with some of that stuff. Or if you allow too much of it, then you've basically, but I think you take into consideration, in that case, the neighborhoods. If there are already things like that, you shouldn't be prejudiced against that person and not let them have it also. But there's areas where that hadn't been allowed before, and you need to keep things the same. Try to keep it as fair as you can for the neighborhood. And I thought that I fought for the people all the time on that board and on the planning commission at every meeting, because that's why both of those boards are there, is so that people can come before them and say, hey, I've got a situation here that I don't think falls in the norm. Would you listen to me? Would you see why I think that I shouldn't have to do this? And so I've had a lot of experience in that area right there, because if y'all ever watch the meetings on TV, you know that I fought for the people a lot. So yeah, I'm against being prejudiced at all in situations like that,
Ask back this way. We have a question for the judges, the Court of Appeals candidates. What is your stand on the death penalty and its use?
Just by way of background, the court we're running for is the Third Court of Appeals. Death penalty cases go to the Court of Criminal Appeals, so this won't be an issue, obviously, for the court. Every case, you obviously look at the facts, you apply the law to the particular case. Obviously, the Eighth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was put into place at a time where every single state in the United States had the death penalty. If we look at what courts have done over time, it's to separate the issue from the text of the Constitution. And what courts have started to say is what matters with regard to the death penalty are the evolving standards of due process, the evolving standards of decency that mark an advanced society, right? I mean, this is an invitation to judicial activism and judicial rule, and the substitution of a judge's view as to what constitutes evolving standards of decency versus what is within the meaning of the Constitution. And when we think about what is within the meaning of the Constitution, we go back to the time that the language was put into place. And at the time that the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, was put into place, every single state had the death penalty. So my view is the death penalty is not cruel and unusual punishment. Otherwise, the people that had the death penalty wouldn't have allowed for, otherwise they wouldn't have adopted the Eighth Amendment. They did, and I don't see how courts can get away from the language of the Constitution and substitute their own views about what they think constitutes a decent society. What matters is not the views of the judges. What matters is the law that exists and what that law means. Again, in any particular case, what judges do is they look at the facts, they apply the particular legal standard. As a general matter, though, the Constitution permits capital punishment, both in Texas as well as the federal Constitution.
In the governor's office, I served as Assistant General Counsel to Al Gonzalez under the Bush administration. Under Lieutenant Governor Rick Perry, I served as General Counsel when Margaret Wilson was the General Counsel there. I have been the person on the phone with the warden to tell them to proceed with the execution more than 30 times. I believe that if that's the law, then that should be what is upheld. Part of my job in advising the governor was to look at, I'm sorry, I'm shaking. It's very serious. On my birthday, on February 3rd of 1998, Carla Faye Tucker was executed. I remember that very well because everybody in our office was struggling. We knew that the death penalty is perfectly acceptable as what justice requires. Al Gonzalez had gone to meet with Carla Faye. We really believe she became a Christian. She had killed 2 people with a pickaxe. She understood she was going to be suffering the consequences of her actions. The death penalty, and now that they've changed the laws, life without parole, are both acceptable forms as passed by the legislature, by your representatives, and they're both the law. So they need to be upheld.